I'm Lovin. I'll be your host for the next hour or so. And we've got a superstar panel lined up for you all today to talk to us about how to master website optimization in 2021. So as well as increasingly e-clerks, we'll also be talking to digital experts from Pets at Home and LoveHoney. Two brands have really sort of transformed their operations over the past year to combat the impacts of the pandemic and also Brexit. We'll also be hearing from BigCommerce to share some of the insights and tactics that their clients have used. So for today's session, we'll be looking at three sort of main areas. We'll start by looking at how product discovery is changing. We'll then move on to which optimization and personalization tactics you should be using to increase average order value and conversion rates across the website. And finally, we'll look at how to future-proof your e-commerce strategy by using AI. So I will kick off the round of intros. I've been part of the eClerks for just over a year now. I'm based in our London office and part of the client services team. And before eClerks, I was in the A/B testing space. So let's meet the panel. Chris, do you want to kick off the intros from your side?
Yeah, thanks, Levan. So afternoon, everybody. I'm Chris Holyland. I'm Group Digital Director here at Pets at Home. Been at Pets at Home for nearly 6 years, actually, and I look after all of the customer experience and customer digital touch points for the group, actually. So yeah, that's across Pets at Home, the Groom Room, and our Vets for Pets brand. So looking after all of the customer touch points is the key job really for me.
Hi, I'm Rob. I'm the CRO lead at LoveHoney. I run experiments, on-site personalization and segmentation across our 9 global sites, as well as trying to guide UX and accessibility best practice. I've been here for about 18 months now. Previously, I switched between client-side and agency-side e-commerce roles in the beauty and events industries, covering both B2B and B2C. I'm a scientist at heart, and I try and bring a level of scientific rigor to the experiments we run and the changes that we make, the goal of making our sites work well for the business and best in class in terms of user experience.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Iris Schiefer, and I manage European technology partnerships for BigCommerce, an API-first SaaS e-commerce platform. I joined BigCommerce in 2019 and previously spent 7 years in B2B sales, most recently at Forrester Research, where I focused on working with fast-growing innovative tech companies.
Sure, you're on mute.
Hi guys, my name is Sri Sharma. I'm CEO and co-founder of Increasingly, and I'm the one that doesn't know how to use Zoom. I run an AI e-commerce technology company, and I'm very proud to say that I work with both Chris and Rob at Pets at Home and at LoveHoney.
Hi everyone, my name is Paresh and I'm with eClerks from a little over 6 years now. In my current capacity, I'm heading business development for our digital business for UK and EMEA region, and also a practice lead for content and commerce services. Apart from that, I'm also managing some of the key customers for eClerks in UK and EMEA region.
Thank you. Also, I think, for a lot of people, 22 was definitely a year to remember. And I think in many ways, a year to forget with COVID sweeping across the globe and the added impact of Brexit within the UK. I think everyone's had to change their daily routine and lifestyle to some extent. But in the face of adversity and 3 national lockdowns later, many brands and companies have certainly adapted to the, I guess, accelerated change in digital landscape. So, I think the main thing people are looking at is survival, making sure they come out the other end of the pandemic. And more importantly, how to kind of keep the customer base happy throughout. So Chris, given Pets at Home are both an online and a high street retailer, what have been the biggest challenges Pets at Home have faced in the past year?
Yeah, thanks, Levan. It's a good question. So I think one of the things for Pets at Home as a pet care business is that we were fortunate enough to stay open during the pandemics and the lockdowns to really provide the pet care services that we do. So we've been really there to sort of support customers, look after their pets, and really help them kind of bring to life all the aspects of pet care. So I think one of the biggest challenges when the lockdown happened, obviously customers have sort of used different channels for convenient missions. So some customers using online in the early parts of lockdown just for convenience, and then shifting back into store channels. So I think the biggest thing that we faced is how to adapt our business model and how to really kind of make sure that we've got the capacity to really support the customer demand that's come through pandemic. So in some respects, from an e-commerce perspective, we really leveraged some of the investments that we'd previously made in our kind of infrastructure in distribution. But like most online operations, the capacity constraints, the carrier capacity constraints were all really live things that we faced into the van. So I think navigating some of the growing pains that when you get an accelerated growth spurt, you tend to find some growing pains and some things break along the way, and then you've got to adapt really quickly to do it. So I think they were one of the biggest sort of challenges that we faced into, but we coped really well. We leveraged some of the investments that we previously made, and then we adapted really fast to make sure that we could support and look after customers really. So it was all driven from a need and a desire to make sure we didn't let customers down during that pandemic phase.
That's great, thank you. And Rob, what's been the sort of impact for LoveHoney?
Sure, we've got a slightly different perspective here because we're online only. We've just come out of the back of a large replatforming project. Actually, we finished yesterday. We successfully launched 3 new sites. In combination with the brisk trade and pressure from increased demand for the products, pressure on the site from more visitors, it saw us working at a level that we only normally see during peak period for months at a time. The scaling challenge has impacted hugely on everyone across all parts of the business, but I think they've risen to the challenge really well. From a physical perspective, obviously social distancing in the warehouse was a big change at first, a big learning experience, but that's been in place almost a year now, and delivery timescales are now excellent. And we've got multiple warehouses across the world, and so we were able to sort of transfer learnings from one to the other. I'm at the opposite end of the business, to the buying and logistics side, but from what I can tell, obviously difficult, is they're taking it in their stride. I think one thing that all businesses should consider is that although specific black swan events, whether it be COVID, border closures, or a ship stuck in the Suez Canal, there will always be unexpected events. It makes for efficient use of capital within your business to run a lean sort of just-in-time supply chain, but the house of cards can come down really quickly if you don't have contingency plans. In terms of tech, the old platform held up pretty well. Our ops team kept drama to a minimum. Site was performant throughout. Transformation was challenging, but we've had to examine and rebuild so much of our tech, along with working from home and childcare and all that kind of stuff. But now that we've managed to take everything apart and put it back together, we've got a really good understanding of how it works and fits together. It was a great opportunity to wipe the slate clean, bring over the stuff that was working, throw out the stuff that wasn't, and bring the sites up in terms of usability and performance. And I think it puts us in a strong position.
Thanks, Rob. And yeah, Iris, good to hear from you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Echoing what Rob and Chris said around sort of unexpected online growth. A lot of our merchants have been in a very similar position, particularly in sectors like home and garden, health, grocery, all the sectors that you typically expect. But what we're also seeing is those sort of traditionally non-digital businesses making the foray into e-commerce. So for example, real estate, we've seen a lot of, or hospitality. So we've had to be quite adaptable in terms of our model to be able to serve those customers in a suitable way as well. I would say certainly the question that probably comes up the most is around international selling and the changing trade rules that came into effect on the 31st of December. So many of our larger merchants already had fulfillment centers in Europe, but for smaller businesses or businesses with a high cross-border audience, it really has been incredibly tough. And the administrative elements around EU VAT registration and managing increased costs has been a big part of that conversation, but it's also around how to communicate those extra costs to the consumer. So in the context of website optimization, my biggest takeaway point from those conversations really would be to show total landed costs as early as possible in the shopper journey, not just at checkout, where cart abandonment tends to be highest for that exact reason, and starting to incorporate some of that visibility and information on shipping costs and times into the product pages, and consider rolling some of those costs into the product costs themselves, the product prices, so you can still take advantage of those sort of free or reduced shipping incentives for consumers.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's good to hear from, I guess the client side perspective on that. And I know, Paresh, you've also been working very closely with a number of our clients in the past sort of year to help rethink and reshape their, the operational model, right the way from the supply chain all the way to the end conversion. Have you got any sort of examples where brands have adapted to that sort of shift in customer demand or customer behavior?
A lot of them, actually, a lot of them. I mean, I can probably give an example of Pets at Home since Chris is here, right? I mean, and that's quite a smartest move these guys have done. What they have done during this time, they've actually reduced the size of the catalog, and that kind of helped them positively if you actually get the hindsight, right? What it does is it actually helped them to focus on what consumer is really wanting, right? It kind of helped them on that front. And second is, the energies within the company are actually spending more time in terms of optimizing those searches and providing those, products which customer really want to find. And if they're unable to find, they're actually giving alternative to the customers to find those products. So that kind of, synergies of reducing the catalog, providing alternative, getting adjusted to the customer behavior kind of help them in terms of overall increasing the sales. Another example probably I can talk about is about Adidas, and how brilliantly they have actually done their campaigns. And they were the first one who actually came up with this team campaign, hashtag called Team Home, something like that. And what it does is it kind of, get all those sports celebrities on the online platform. They're wearing the Adidas branded stuff, helping customers actually, relate to those sports celebrities and kind of make, the entire concept of exercise, entire concept of sports educational to the customers, right? So different companies actually try and do different stuff, but the end thing, what we have realized, it's more about how you actually treat your customer and what kind of behavior you are into, and how you actually absorb the behavior and how you change it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of brands have been looking at that kind of engagement angle a lot. I mean, Adidas even managed to get me off the sofa to work out for I think about 2 weeks, and that so slowly died off to it's just in-house at the moment, as my wife will be able to vouch. But I remember one of my clients' Boots, they use what they called a virtual queue on the website. So you enter the website and you get taken to a holding page, which I thought was a really effective and smart way of kind of managing that website traffic. They also had limitations on how many units per stock you could buy of key things like hand sanitizer. So again, looking at a bit further down the line and kind of future-proofing their stock essentially to make sure that they could still deliver. Chris, have you noticed any shifts in sort of customer behavior from a pet ownership perspective or in the pet industry at all?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things, and this has been sort of like really widely publicized, is during the pandemic and lockdown, more people have worked from home, more people have decided to sort of get a pet really for company, and that's really driven sort of pet ownership has sort of spiked over the course of last year. Also, there's been lots of stuff in the press around the cost of buying a puppy or a kitten, for example, because the demand has been really high and the supply has been really quite challenging, and that's really changed the shape, I think, of people buying and owning a pet, really, which has been really interesting for us, because we're there to make sure we deliver the kind of pet care. We're there with services, we're there with products and solutions, subscriptions. So it's been really interesting. That shift has seen sort of greater demand. And actually more people working from home has really resulted in people feeling confident about buying a pet and becoming a pet owner, which I think has been a good thing. So we've seen that as being a positive. Equally, in the background, we've been there to really care and look after and support our kind of pet sort of charities that we support. So there's lots of charities that Pets at Home supports to make sure that either pet shelters or pet welfare So we've made sure that we're there, because on the positive side of pet ownership, sometimes there can be people that can't look after the pets, and therefore they give their pet up. So we've been there to really try and support new pet owners on their journey, and also existing pet owners that are struggling. So I think that shift has been really interesting for us, Levan, over the last 12 months, actually.
That's interesting. Thank you. And Rob, I know you've got 8 or 9 websites globally. How's the impact been for LoveHoney?
Sure. So we've got 9 websites globally, and it was really interesting. We could see the browsing patterns change with the various lockdowns hitting and lifting at different times globally. You know, you can see seasons changing. You can almost see each wave hit and how people would switch from spending more time indoors and less time outdoors. People in long distance relationship who aren't getting to see their partner, or perhaps people who can't go out on date nights with everything closed, have wanted to find other ways of feeling connected. I think just in general, with the nature of so much of the world being in hibernation, buying patterns have enormously shifted online, regardless of the category. You know, you can now get basically whatever you want delivered. People who would never have dreamed of buying food shopping or clothing or cars or whatever online are just doing so now. Our traffic definitely lifted early on as people switched to spending more time at home and online. And I think anyone who sells online knows that traffic, AOV, and conversion rate at Christmas, they all lift. It was like that. It wasn't just more people visiting the site, but they were more likely to actually be shopping rather than browsing. Thankfully, we didn't need to put in a queuing system like you suggested. Our legacy system scaled pretty well to keep up with demand. But yeah, it's been a really interesting year watching it all unfold.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about the kind of frequency aspect. I know a lot of brands, and we've seen across the board with our retail clients, people are shopping more frequently, but because they are shopping more frequently, the average order value or basket size has gone down. So I know, Paresh, you've been working on a few sort of loyalty programs with the likes of M&S and Sparks and Adidas. Anything you can kind of share from that clients have done?
A lot have been done, actually, and as I said earlier, you know, primarily it is more around the customer behavior, right? How customers are thinking, how they are reacting at this time. And at this point of time, what we have realized that companies are actually investing a lot in terms of, you know, observing, in terms of identifying, you know, the customer behavior. What we've been doing for Marks and Spencer's, you know, on the Spark side, right? We're actually not only looking at 1 or 2 promos, but at this point of time, because what we have observed through our studies, that 54% of the times when you actually send or you sign up a customer on a loyalty program, they actually expect to get 1 promotion from you in 24 hours. So what we are actually trying to do with Marks and Spencer is try to actually give them, you know, bundle offers, right? 3, 4, 5, 6 different offers in one Sparks email. And that kind of worked well for them, because they were actually able to generate over 6 million of revenue with just like 4 programs like that during the lockdown. So that kind of proved quite, you know, good for them. Another example probably, you know, would be good over here to talk about gamification concept, right? It kind of revolutionized the entire beauty industry, right? The likes of Sephora, the likes of Dyer, the likes of Mac, right? The beauty brand Mac. They actually launched this concept of gamification, and they were actually doing a lot. One, it kind of keeps your customer engaged, and second, it kind of actually gives another stream in the loyalty kitty, that, you know, you have a customer, you're holding the customer, and then you can actually, you know, throw some points, give customers more, you know, benefit, give them, you know, another, you know, app to kind of, you know, interact with you, and then you can probably enhance your products and also, you know, get, you know, some revenue out of it.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about the kind of the bundling, especially for M&S being a big sort of focus in terms of one category and cross-pollinating into another category. And Shri, have you noticed any sort of trends in there from a bundling or an upselling perspective?
Yeah, when we look across our clients, it's interesting. We have seen AOV drop across the board, and that's consistent with a lot of reports, probably around 20 to 40%. I'd say for apparel, we saw it more, on average, more pronounced, so more like 30-ish%. Consumer electronics, very little drop, unsurprising. Apparel was influenced by one, you know, inventory, as Chris even pointed out, that different lines are no longer being run, are no longer being sold. So it's not always because the customer can't afford it, it's just sometimes because those lines, it's not effective, or it's been harder in the supply chain to be able to sell them. But those are the kind of trends we're seeing. We're seeing a kind of consistent items per transaction drop. But in terms of use of the concept of bundling, we're still seeing bundling being used because there's enough products there to want to use the tool to help with adding more products. So to Paresh's point, it's still relevant, the concept. And just a funny anecdote to Chris's point around and the pets. And so everyone I know, I'm sure everyone knows somebody who's just got a new pet. And in London, you can't buy a cockapoo anymore. Cockapoos used to cost about £400 a few years ago, and now literally like £5,000. So there are some verticals that have done incredibly well, and for good reason too. It's actually helped people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, I think during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of brands looking at the overall end-to-end customer experience on site a lot closer. But Iris, have you seen any sort of key optimization projects that your clients are kind of focusing on for the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the individual brand and their sort of maturity and dependencies, but certainly a big topic for a lot of our merchants has been around diversifying their sales channels. So, I mean, I'm referring to channels like social and marketplaces, but also kind of finding that balance between the D2C and the wholesale components of their site. Obviously, we see a lot in the media at the moment around more brands going D2C and kind of owning that direct consumer relationship. But what's equally interesting is some of that shift the other way around. And a lot of our merchants have been revamping that side of their business, bringing in a lot of those traditional B2C components like personalization and mobile commerce into that B2B buyer journey, and even sort of traditionally D2C only brands bringing in wholesale to kind of broaden their audience. And I think the trick there is really finding the right buyers and making sure that whichever retailers you are selling into continue to provide that consistent brand experience, but also avoiding alienating that loyal D2C base that was there before. And it could be a case of offering specific products or variants exclusively for the D2C site or special offers exclusive to the website. But keeping that customer engagement and emotional attachment across different channels has definitely been a hot topic of conversation across the board for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, a lot of times brands have kind of brought a lot of projects forward because of increased traffic. A lot of teams have been working harder and longer days during the pandemic as well. So it's really been, I guess, an opportunity to catalyze a lot of these digital projects. Chris, for Pets at Home, is there any key on-site optimization areas which you guys are looking at the moment?
Yeah, we've been really focused on how we can improve our customer convenience, Levan. So helping customers get the products and services in the way that they want it, in the timescale that they want to have them, has been really, really important. We've traditionally operated a really strong home delivery proposition, and then a collect from store proposition where we previously centrally fulfilled and delivered it to the store for the customer to collect. So one of the initiatives that we've accelerated through the pandemic and really has been proven really successful is our 1 hour click and collect service. So we did the work in the background all the way through actually the pandemic when we were all working from home. We've revamped our 1 hour click and collect service, and that's been a real game changer for customer convenience. Later on this year as well, we're accelerating the ability to be able to use our stores as actually delivery, sort of deliver from store stock, sort of hub and spoke setup. And then later in the year, we're going to then be able to introduce same day delivery. So the whole theme of accelerating the customer convenience because of the pandemic, because of people wanting to use the online channel to get the product, to secure the stock. And then we're trying to make it really convenient for you to either have it collected or have it delivered. So that's been our big theme actually, across the last 6 months really of optimization.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really big achievement, and well done to your team to kind of rolling that out effectively. I know a lot of clients who've either tried to do click and collect or previously tried to do it. There's often challenges about people not collecting it within the window and then stock availability not there for somebody else to come and purchase. So the fact that you managed to do that quickly and also within just 1 hour, I think it's a huge achievement.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been really good for customers and really good for the operation. Actually, the store colleagues have been amazing. So bringing the experience to life when you come and collect. We've also done contactless collection, which allows you to arrive at the store, scan a QR code, and punch in your order number, and then we'll bring it out to your car. So that general customer convenience, you know, they've been things that we probably had on the radar previous to the pandemic, but actually contactless collection, people not wanting to come out of their vehicle to come and collect, you know, we've had a solution that's been really really well proven, really. So they're sort of initiatives, and I think it's better for the consumer. Actually, I think the pandemic has meant that we've done some of these things faster, which means the consumers benefited. So in some respects, I think that's helped us all. You know, lots of other retailers on similar retail parks have done similar executions, really, and I just think it's all to benefit the customer, really. Pandemic or no pandemic, we'll be continuing with all of these initiatives as we head into later on of this year.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think just touching on what Paresh said earlier about product catalogs and the range, I know that's certainly one of the areas where our clients have been looking at a lot more on how to optimize what they're selling and how much they're selling. For example, M&S, a lot of people have seen recently have launched what they call their brand strategy, where they're now selling products from the likes of Phase 8 and Jules on their website. So, you know, typically they would have regarded these brands as competitors. But that, I think, is a really big sort of strategic shift for a brand like M&S, who has, you know, a worldwide famous brand, and kind of moving to slightly of a marketplace type retailer. But Iris, when you think of kind of, you know, best practice or aspirational brands within your client base, who would you say you think is nailing e-commerce at the moment, and are there anything you could share that they've done to sort of cater to those customer needs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess first example for me would be someone like not within our base specifically, but I love what companies like Stitch Fix, for example, are doing in terms of kind of building a holistic view of their customers by collecting a wide variety of data points, and then also using that data to personalize the customer experience and streamline their operations. And that model really taps into something that we're seeing a lot more of, which is creating a bespoke experience and being able to tailor your products to create an item or bundle that's unique to the consumer. So we saw the same thing with the Nike Psych by You initiative, which allows you to customize sort of each aspect of your trainer, whether it's the laces, the color, the base, everything like that. And this is especially prevalent for younger audience because it taps into that desire for self-expression and also concerns around sustainability. So, I mean, you're not going to pay extra to customize an item and then discard it and just get something new for the next season, right? So in terms of our merchant base, we actually have a merchant in the jewelry space who's doing this very well. They're called Lily Blanche, and they're based up in Scotland. And one option on the site is to add your own photos and engraving to their locket range. And I'm actually a sitting advertisement for them today because I am actually wearing one. You probably can't see the photos in there, but I did add them. So it obviously worked on me. But I mean, it depends on your product and your range and your audience and tapping into what they want. But it's certainly a way to stand out from the crowd and kind of differentiate your brand experience.
Yeah, definitely. And Shri, have you sort of seen any, I guess, market leading or thought leadership or examples from your client base?
So it's actually outside the client base. I was pondering on this, and I think something that I try and tap into is actually the consumer behavior trend, and then what technology was used. And I think, you know, with COVID, everything's gone virtual. And so brands have tinkered for the last few years in cosmetic industry. They've tinkered with the idea of virtual makeover so that a customer can see what the makeup was going to look like. And I think Ulta Beauty have done a really phenomenal job of testing technologies, picking the right technology, and then really promoting it. And I think it's actually going to be game changing because of this current, you know, climate with COVID, that literally you're going to see a trend when we come out of it where plenty of customers are going to go, why do I need to go into store to, you know, see what makeups look good? I think this online solution is pretty good. It's 80% of the way there, so therefore I'm happy with that. And I think that's revolutionary, and that's capitalizing on a shift and therefore influencing consumer behavior with the right technology. And so that's really game changing for me. Of course, there are other examples, but I think that's a really big one.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sri. And Paresh, I know we've seen an increased focus again on things like customer experience, looking at site search, facets and filters, product recommendations. But what would you say is the biggest sort of game changer or the biggest evolution from on-site optimization in recent years?
Is that question for me? Because you were breaking it up for me.
Yes, please.
So you actually touched the right part. See, there are legacy things which everyone is doing. Fixing their site search, right? People were actually
Paresh, you're frozen.
at this point in time.
Levan, maybe we come back to Paresh.
Things like listing your products on Amazon. That's
there we go. we'll let him come back, but yeah, just while he's connecting, Sri, do you want to kind of give us your thoughts on what you think is the biggest game changing aspect from your perspective?
So I'm invariably going to be slightly biased because we're an on-site product and we're new and we've won e-commerce product of the year 2 years running. So I'm obviously going to be biased. So I'm not going to say the most important. I'm going to say an important one, I think, is that, and if we kind of look at it customer-wise, we think strategically, there's lots of tools and they're helping people find products and discover products and discovery particularly. And there hasn't been enough focus on actually saying, really, what project is the customer trying to fulfill? And what I mean by project, it doesn't have to be a DIY project. It could be a beauty regime. It could be a health regime. It could be, what do I need for my pet? And it could be any sort of concept of something that you need to put together. And there hasn't been enough utilization of that concept in e-commerce outside of Amazon. And that's what we really came into the market to solve. And so that's called bundling. And so where we really tried to focus was on the algorithmic side of that, which is around precision of what products should be brought together to drive attachment versus what already exists, which is lots and lots of recommendations, which really is an algorithm around kind of like what alternatives should you discover. And so that I think is big because there's a revenue uplift, and we typically talk about a revenue uplift of 5 to 15% site-wide revenue boost. So that for me, because that's something, obviously I'm biased, but that's something that I think is meaningful as well.
Yeah, I think most online retailers are doing the bundling now. I think only a handful have actually got it really nailed on. Whereas I think we see the people also viewed or people also bought a lot, and yeah, it's only as good as the algorithm is, right? And yeah, for me, I think increasingly do it the best in the market. But again, obviously, I'm biased. But Rob, what would you say is kind of been the biggest game changers for in on-site optimization in the past year or so?
So I think actually, for me, the biggest change has been the shift to mobile. So we treat mobile as a first-class experience, not an afterthought. And this has a lot of implications for how you design a site, how everything has to fit into a smaller screen without cutting out functionality or making it feel cluttered. I think over the past 20 years or so, sites have absolutely ballooned in terms of the computing and network resources required to run them. Perhaps fueled by rise of broadband and big screens that designers have. Going mobile first really focuses the mind on making your load times, site architecture, and page layouts as clean and lightweight as possible. Screen real estate is really minimal, so you've got to think really carefully about how you spend each pixel. In terms of site search, I think there's a lot more flexibility available now than there used to be. People want to be able to filter, sort, and search by their favorite product attributes, and sellers want to be able to enrich search through merchandising rules, autocomplete, autocorrect, and so on. There are a few big players that are doing this really well, and it's not enough now just to have a basic text match on your site. And similar to site search and product discovery in general, the absolute worst thing for me would be if somebody came to the site looking for a particular product that we offer, but they were unable to find it. I think that recommendations and bundling can work really well for product discovery. We've worked really closely with the team increasingly to try different bundling algorithms and UX UI designs. We found that particularly if it's an unfamiliar category, sellers aren't always going to be sure about required or complementary accessories for the item they're buying, alternative options, lower and higher prices, and so on. And so we've tried to strike a balance between a mix of machine and manual recommendations. Machine is great at looking backwards, finding correlations, but if we want to recommend a couple of products that we know are compatible or work extremely well together, that requires detailed product knowledge that we can't just throw historic transactional data into a big pot and hope for the best. So it's challenging to strike a balance there, but we're trying.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that, you know, in the last few years, people have been using the terms AI and ML a lot. And I think finding that balance between, you know, the manual optimization as well as the power of these algorithms is, you know, very, very important. And Shri, you know, you've been one of the people I would say who's been, I guess, leading product bundling and upselling in the industry for the last few years. But how do you kind of see that product discovery changing or evolving rather going forward?
I love this topic. So if we think about shopping different to buying, shopping is kind of that whole discovery piece versus just getting it, which is buying. And we're already seeing plenty of that discovery or that shopping happening on social environments. So, you know, your usual suspects, Facebook and Instagram. And with them pushing Facebook and Instagram shop, and I know BigCommerce are partnered there as well, which I think is phenomenal. You're going to see that that's going to be an important channel for brands to be selling in, not just being discovered in, but selling in. And I think that presents complications, but also huge opportunities. And I'm very excited by that space, and I genuinely feel that that's got the potential in 5 years to be 20% of e-commerce revenue right there. So it's a very exciting space.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, that opens up the whole can of worms around attribution and where each touch point, you know, kind of contributes in user journey. But we won't go into that today. We can probably have a whole webinar on attribution itself. But yeah, but Rob, how do you think it's going to sort of evolve going forwards?
So I think more and more product discovery is going to be based on user-driven insight, trying to find a good match between the products you have on offer and the customers visiting the site. Some of this you can definitely achieve by detailed clickstream tracking, monitoring how people navigate your site and interact with omnichannel touchpoints like email, ads, and chat, and so on. But you really need to plan for a more privacy-focused, cookieless future. Things don't always have to be one-to-one personalized to be valuable to users. I think a lot of commerce is about meeting people where they are. If they're at the start of their journey, when they're in an information gathering phase, you've got to accept and support them in that, provide some helpful guides, friendly advice, and try to get a dialogue going with them, perhaps via email autoresponders lists or something. If they're further along in their journey, you can perhaps introduce them to adjacent products or superior versions of the items that they're considering, or perhaps products that are more expert level than beginner level. I think personalization is definitely here to stay, but it's not a panacea. It's going to be really tough to do cold start one-to-one personalization. You know, first-time visitors, you go a long way with segmentation instead. Simply knowing information about a referrer or geographic information about a user might be enough to tweak the experience in a positive way for them. There are a couple of other big traps that you can fall into with one-to-one personalization that we try to avoid. You don't want people to end up in a so-called filter bubble where the algorithm has overfit to the user some kind of avatar. They keep getting recommended the same type of products again and again. In the wider world, this is definitely the kind of thing people are seeing going on in people's social media news feeds from recommended articles and videos becoming an echo chamber. The other thing you've really got to watch out for personalization is site performance. If you're doing personalization or even some kinds of segmentation, you can't cache these elements of the websites at the edge, and so performance suffers. People might see carousels or search results loading slowly or populating in erratic ways. I think I heard some stat that said every second longer your website takes is a 2% hit conversion rate. So it's definitely worth considering. One good approach to avoiding this pitfall is to make sure personalized elements aren't render blocking. They aren't above the fold. That way, even if they do take a second or two round trip to load, the user doesn't see a page flicker if they're just below the fold.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rob. And Iris, is the third-party cookie issue and social commerce on the radar for a lot of your clients for the next year?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, just echoing everything that Rob sort of said there around personalization. I think we all know that bad personalization is definitely worse than no personalization at all. But I think also tapping into what Sri said around social selling, I think we can't ignore the new regulations around third-party cookie phase-outs from Google, and also the changes to the pixel policy on Facebook. So obviously, I think most of us will be aware that Google is phasing out third-party cookies on Chrome browsers from 2022. And I guess important to say that this is not going to affect first-party cookies. So tracking that user behavior and that personalization that Rob was speaking about on the back of that on your own site is still going to be totally fine, but it is going to affect retargeting and advertising on external sites. So I think in the next couple of months and years, we're going to see a lot of that digital advertising budget moving to things like contextual marketing, for example, targeting specific groups and demographics based on behaviors and propensity to buy versus individuals. And it also kind of takes out that creepy factor that a lot of people were being concerned about how their data was being used. And we spoke about brands leaning towards D2C earlier, and a big driver for that, frankly, is the ability to own more customer data and understanding who's really buying your products and why, so you can more effectively drive traffic to your site.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree. And Chris, once sort of normality, I guess, is restored across society, how do you think the physical stores will compete with e-commerce? Is there anything that Pets at Home in particular are planning to sort of future-proof the physical stores and continue to attract the footfall through the doors?
Yeah, I think the stores play a massive role in the customer experience, Levan. And I think certainly for us, because we're in a pet care business, we've got pet care centres where we've got grooming of dogs, we've got vets, all under one roof. There's lots of reasons why you would still come to a physical store to get pet care, really. So I think for us, our mission is all about joining together the experiences, making it really easy for a customer to do the things that they need to do across our group of services and propositions. And I think e-commerce is always good because it's good competition. It helps us kind of make sure that our propositions are always competitive, our pricing is competitive, our services are competitive. But I think we can, really still have the edge in pet care where we've got the physical presence and the digital presence. And I think for us, we add the value when the two things come together. And there's lots of things from a pet care perspective that whilst you can get good advice and information online and you can get good products and solutions, there's some aspects of pet care that you just can't physically do in a digital setting. So I think for us, it's about making sure our offer and our kind of proposition across pet care is really consistent in both channels, and actually using each channel to support each other. So great example is, nearly 40% of our customers choose to collect their online order from one of our stores because it's really convenient. They could have had free home delivery, but they still choose to collect it. So that just shows that there is a real drive from our customers to use our stores and to access it. And then often when they go in to collect, they have a good browse around the store. They'll talk to an expert colleague. They might even pop in to see the groomer, or they might pop into the vet. So we create this sort of virtuous circle, really, in terms of delivering good service, and we can do some unique things in our physical estate of stores that you can't do in a digital setting. So I think for us, Levan, it's about using both strengths to really complement the customer experience, really.
Yeah, I think that's one of the areas where brands are looking more at creating that, like say, experiential in-store experience. And yeah, I guess making sure that consistency is there, both online and offline, is a big challenge and very important. Iris, what are your thoughts on sort of future-proofing the physical stores?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we're an e-commerce platform, right? So like the physical part of the business isn't really what we look after, but most of our merchants are not online only, and most of them do have a bricks and mortar component. And exactly as Chris has just said, I see bricks and mortar as a complementary channel, not a competing one towards e-commerce. It's about offering a different experience consistent experience, but a different experience across those different channels. And in fact, tapping into what you said, Chris, around 40% of your customers choosing click and collect. What I'm really interested to see is how retailers are going to kind of start leveraging bricks and mortar and things like click and collect as an upsell channel. So what we've seen in the US is that approximately 30% of consumers use click and collect, or buy online, pick up in store, as they call it, to buy additional products in store when they're picking up their order. And I think a lot of retailers are going to really need to be thinking about their store layout anyway, in terms of social distancing and one-way traffic systems. So definitely taking this avenue into account in terms of your merchandising strategy and understanding which products are typically being upsold as part of that click and collect journey, and making them as accessible as possible. And again, I love what you said, Chris, about having that unique in-store experience. Tying back to what we said earlier around D2C versus selling through retailers, it's finding that balance between keeping a consistent brand experience versus offering something unique depending on the shopper's preferred channel.
Yeah, it's a really good point about, you know, in-store being an upselling channel. And I know, Shri, you have part of the increasing offering is for in-store. So how do you think increasing the offering from an in-store perspective is going to sort of run parallel with the in-store over the next year or so? Yeah,
we've been quite quiet about our in-store proposition, but for example, we have it with Wix in the UK. And the essence of the technology is it helps store reps do a better job of cross-selling, because they can't necessarily hold all the entire inventory of products in their minds and know what sells with what. And it's a tool to help them get insight very quickly based on stock availability for that store around what products would co-purchase, would go well together and drive attachment. But just interesting kind of point to Iris and Chris is, I think Chris has got a phenomenal store and the proposition to go in physically, where retailers don't. I think COVID really presents an opportunity to really ask oneself a question of, you know, where we have our stores, does it either add strategic value in terms of branding, or does it drive profit? And this is an opportunity to really have a reset for a lot of businesses, and there are plenty of businesses that are really thinking hard about that currently.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the most powerful things about increasing the technology in particular is it's all powered off data rather than it being led by a merchandising team or a trade team. And because it's, you know, the AI is very much real time in that you'll notice any shifts in buying behavior or what SKUs people are buying together. And yeah, I think being able to harness that in store is a very, very powerful tool for retailers. So I guess, yeah, finally, the last question before we do move into the Q&A is, what are the key things that retailers should be doing successfully over the next year or so to optimize the e-commerce performance? So Paresh, we'll start with you on that one. Are you back with us?
Yes, Lavan, I'm so sorry.
That's all right, it happened.
Yeah. So as I was actually earlier saying this, and I would actually like to quote this again, you know, a couple of things, you know, we've been talking about fixing the content, talking about taxonomy, talking about, you know, personalization, product bundling. But what we have noticed of late, you know, there are a couple of things. One is increasing your presence across omni-channels at the right time, right? A lot of clients are actually focusing on onboarding their products and services on marketplaces like Amazon, Walmart, and they're actually not only listing it, but they're spending a lot of money in terms of optimizing those product copies, creating those A+ content on those marketplaces. The second thing, what I see and what we have really seen have kind of exploded in the market of late is a digital shelf concept. So as you get into the competitive landscape with marketplaces, you really need to be on top of your game. And when it comes to pricing, promotions, availability, what your customers talk about you, and you know what searches they're looking for, what are the kind of assortments you have, what your competitors are offering, becomes pivotal for the brands and the retailers. And the third thing, again, you know, one of the things which actually comes into my mind is, you know, go beyond other channels, right? Not only marketplaces, not only, you know, social, but there are a lot of other channels as well, right? And this is a time where, you know, not only the manufacturer, but all the, you know, B2B companies or any other company who are not selling directly into the market, they really need to push and see themselves beyond selling to the retailer or to the wholesalers.
Yeah, definitely. Shri, what do you think?
I really like, there's a very good professor of marketing and e-commerce called Diana Kahneman, and she talks about 4 quadrants that a business, an e-commerce business to think about, and that's product, experience, price, and reducing friction. And she really talks about pick 2 of those 4 boxes. Of course, you need to focus on all 4, but pick 2 and make them your A game, and run your own race. And I think that would be my kind of big message. Pick whether you're about product and experience or reducing friction and price, and pick your 2 and really go for it.
Iris?
Yeah, I think there wouldn't be sort of one tech to rule them all or anything like that I could pick out. And I think we had a kind of question around this as well. I think if there was one piece of advice that I would pick out for retailers looking at their strategy is think about how your tech stack ties together. You can invest in as many new technologies and marketing initiatives as you want, but if they're going to sit in a little siloed bucket completely aside from the rest of your architecture, you're never going to see real ROI out of that. So my advice would really be when planning out those new digital initiatives, think about how you're going to start eliminating some of those data silos in terms of your architecture, your cross-departmental operations, and also your reporting across those different techs.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think as digital teams are growing, we do often see the sort of siloed approach, and especially with data. Obviously there are massive benefits to having multiple access points and kind of using one data set to harness the other. Rob, what are your thoughts in terms of the one thing to get right for the next year?
A couple of things, if I may. So I think people really need to get ready for a cookieless, more privacy conscious world. And I think people really need to be prepared for Google's Core Web Vitals ranking update, which is coming in May 2021. Take a look at those. There's some really valuable stuff in there. I think it makes the internet a nicer place to be. It's good for consumers. It's just going to be a lot of hard work on the tech side, kind of getting it right. And the other thing is, I know this isn't a shiny piece of tech, but I think it's good, well-worn, old-fashioned business advice that applies just as well in 2021 as much as it would have done in 1921. But don't worry about your competitors so much. Instead, focus obsessively on your own customers. Find out exactly what they want and work out how to give it to them. Make it convenient, build up trust, keep your promises, make it the clear choice to come to you and not a competitor.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And last but certainly not least, Chris, what's your one?
Thanks, Levant. I think it's really to be obsessive with the user experience, using all the data and all the tools that you've got at your disposal to really understand what your customers are doing before they've got to your site, what they're doing when they're on the site, and then really eking out all those extra percentage of benefits that you can get by optimizing the experience. So I think it's really about being obsessive about that and not sort of taking for granted some of the pain points or friction points that might exist. You've got to sort of get into the detail, get into the data, really optimize, really improve, and the marginal gains when you add them all up can be quite significant. And all of that is through that obsession of improving the user experience and removing the pain points. So that would be my big piece of advice, Lavan. And I think, there's plenty of every site has got bags of optimization available within it. So it's not that, you never have the perfect site, do you? And really there's loads of opportunity to improve every website that exists. So that would be my one sort of thing for the year ahead, really. And that we're certainly going to try and do that in Pets at Home as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think certainly within the last sort of 2 years or so, I think the increase of that culture of testing has really, really grown within agencies, within clients. But I think before there was a bit of maybe a fear of failure if things didn't go well, whereas now it's almost, if it's going to fail it quickly and then launch the iteration as soon as possible, and then sort of looking at how that's rolled out either by segment or by channel. So yeah, we have one question from the audience. I'll open up to the panel. Feel free to answer it from Sudhanshu. What is the best optimization technique that has been the biggest standout in terms of adapting to the pandemic?
Levan, I don't mind having a quick go at this one. Yeah, so we found that we'd recently, just before the pandemic, we'd put our A/B tasty multivariate testing tool in, and really that proved to be probably one of the best things that we'd done, because we could sort of augment the experience to beat some of the situations, and it might be a really small tactical thing that we used it for, but we could sort of change the delivery promise. We could change the lots of the aspects of the site that would have probably been on a propagation cycle. With our A/B tasty testing tool, we could augment the experience really quickly, and that meant we could react to certain things. And I think if we hadn't have had that capability in place, we'd have probably been racing to the line to get that capability during the pandemic. So I think having those sort of tools at your disposal is one way that I certainly think that, you know, we wouldn't have weathered the initial phase of pandemic as well without having that tool. Clearly, we've used it in ways that it probably wasn't ever designed to do, but we've managed to use it to our benefit, really. So I think having that capability and not being afraid to use it for whatever you need to make the business work and support would be probably one of my bits of advice.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one, actually. And, you know, like I say, I worked for an A/B testing agency previously, and just using these platforms, you know, whether it's an A/B Tasty or Optimizely, A/B Target, I think the speed of deployment and building and designing a test is so key. Whereas typically you might go into the development queue and it could be sat there for sort of 2-3 months. But yeah, that concludes today's webinar. Thank you again for everyone for joining us today, particularly in a 4-day week. So I hope everyone has been given at least some food for thought, and hopefully some ideas to explore with your teams internally. But yeah, just before we go, a huge thank you to our amazing panel for sharing the knowledge and insights with us. And a special thank you to Chris and Rob from Pets at Home and LoveHoney increasingly for giving us that client side perspective, which I know, you know, the audience certainly value very highly. So special thank you to you both. And yeah, on that note, I should bid you farewell, and hopefully we'll see you at the next event.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Cheers.
We done?
I think so.
Cool. Thank you so much for hosting this and putting it all together. I think you did an excellent job comparing it. It was fantastic.
Thanks so much. And your contribution was awesome. So I think for these kind of events, it's the client's perspective that really sort of makes it. So yeah, thank you for that. Hopefully we can do another event together.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Cool. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.